Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Board Games Unlocked, and Brad and I are doing our top 10 combat systems, which is a list that I have yet to see anyone do, mainly because it's weird. This is a weird list to do, but I found it particularly fun to make, because we just did our top 10 board games that we would like to see as video games.
Right.
So it got me thinking of video game combat systems. Like you hear that all the time of various video games, like Elden Ring, for example, where you're just thinking about how combat works in a video game and just how engaging it can be. Well, let's reverse and translate it over to board games, because there's a lot of games that feature combat that it's definitely becoming a lot more innovative nowadays than it has been in years past.
Right.
Like surprisingly, I do not have Talisman on here because it's roll a die.
Right.
And it's like, oh, I don't have, Elder Torah on here because it's roll dice and get a 5 or 6. Like that's not cool. But there are a lot of games that do have combat systems that are pretty cool to talk about, I think.
Yeah, this was a interesting list to put together because it made you think about things in different ways. A couple of them on my list are going to be ones that you wouldn't think necessarily are as combat systems, but they are. They just don't look like a traditional one, So
Right.
So I'm kind of interested to see. I assume we're going to have a few crossovers, maybe.
Yeah, I would honestly guess 1, 2, 3. 3 for sure, maybe 4.
Yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at. I'm like at 3, and possibly 4, depending on what direction you went.
Yeah. No, that's a good point, because I was making my list initially, and then I was like, then I kind of had to redo it because I was thinking like too finite. There was one game in particular that was like still on my list, but on the lower end. And then I was like, wait a minute. No, there's way more to this combat than I'm thinking of. And then I redid it and it shot forward a lot. So I'm very excited to talk about this because there are certain games when you're doing combat and you're focusing specifically on that. And it makes me think it's like the way you do combat reminds people it's really hard to do combat.
Right. Oh yeah.
So without further ado, let's get started with my honorable mention, which, I have a few games on this list that are purely just kind of like fighting games. But still, I think that counts. Just because it's all about combat doesn't disqualify it as long as it's really good. And I think there's enough meat here to warrant it at least being an honorable mention. And my honorable mention is the Street Fighter the Miniatures game, which is a game obviously about Street Fighter and has probably the best minis I've gotten that were pre-painted. These ones look just fantastic, enough that I have a display case specifically bought for these. The combat system, which is Street Fighter, so it's a 1v1 game. I kind of put little tags on my list here of kind of what I've defined as the combat system.
Yeah.
And I put it's a unique deck combo system. So every one of these cards, well, not every single one, but most of these cards have like a 4-circle icon on the right side that have colors on them. And whenever you're playing cards, as long as the attack hit, you can combo it with another card that matches the color of the previous card. And it's supposed to represent you pulling off combos in the video game. And I think that is extremely unique. I cannot think of any game that utilizes like a reward system like that. Like if you play your first card, and whenever you're playing, your opponent can have a chance to either block or parry it like your like you can do in the video game. But if they fail to do so, like if they think it's going to be a certain card, like if they're like, oh, I'm going to try and block because I think you're going to do a close-up attack, and you're actually doing a mid-range because your character, like let's say you're playing Dalsim, who can like extend his arms, you're like, haha, yeah, I can do this close-up attack, but it counts as far away because I can extend my arms. And so they miss. So your first attack hits, and you can hold on to cards and be like, okay, so that was a blue, like blue down, whatever. And I have another one that's like it, and that's a blue red, and that one hits. And then they, with the combos, your opponent can't like interrupt, so it's kind of like a big punishment, like it would be in the video game. If you go to parry and you miss the parry, you're going to get punished for it. So it's like, okay, boom, that's that, and then I'm going to go into this attack and this attack and this attack if you set up your hand that way. Ultimately, it is based on dice. Like you do roll dice, and they are unique. Like it's not just D6s, but that initial kind of buildup of doing really cool combos is something that I want to see explored more. Like it's really cool here, and it warrants it being an honorable mention, and it helps that it's Street Fighter, so you can even get more into it if you've played the actual video game. So I think that there's a lot more to be done with this, and each character does have a unique deck, which also helps as well. So if you're playing Ryu, you can do like, you can play multiple Hadoukens in a row and then combo it into like a Shoryuken or something like that. It's very, very neat. So that's yeah, I mean that's really my honorable mention there. And also the map and fighting is 3D. You can play in 2D. They have a 2D board, but the kind of the bigger sell here is that you have movement and in a 3D board.
Right.
But yeah, that's my honorable mention. Street Fighter in the miniatures game.
Sweet. All right. So my honorable mention is, it's a game that I think you were kind of lukewarm on at the beginning, and I think you have everything for it now. But it is a worker placement game, ironically, but then there is a battle phase that you'll use your dice for. And in this game, your dice are actually your fighters. And I put it's Champions of Midgard, specifically with the Valhalla expansion. That's what makes that battle mechanic really sing. Because in the core game, you would do worker placement stuff and gain warriors, which were the dice of different types. You'd use those dice to fight the monsters on the sea, or different things throughout the game. But then when you would lose those warriors, most likely, and that would just be it. Mm-hmm. What they did with the Valhalla expansion is they made it to where it makes it more thematic, because then when you go through and you actually lose warriors to battle, then they go to Valhalla, and then you can actually use that as a plus, them dying, to then go to the Valhalla board up here to actually spend Valhalla points to buy really powerful, cool items. So it's just one of those things that I liked it in the original board game, but it always was a gut punch whenever you'd spend all this time gathering these dice. You'd go fight a sea monster, lose half of your crew, and then it'd be like, then you'd have to spend all this time building back up and stuff. Now with this Valhalla expansion and being able to get those Valhalla tokens and stuff like that, it makes it almost a strategy to go in and lose certain fighters to then be able to purchase stuff in Valhalla. It's a simplistic, I guess, combat battle system, whatever. But with the Valhalla and having it have that addition to be able to, like I said earlier, kind of you can plan for it. If you're sending a bunch of swordsmen out, and those are the Valhalla tokens you're going to get to be able to use to buy something up there that you need. You can kind of adds more strategy to it instead of just rolling a handful of dice and, I happened to defeat them, but I lost half of them, get the reward, but then I have to spend time rebuilding.
Even if you don't plan for it, just that Yeah, because here's one of the things, because if this is for some reason the first top 10 you watch with Brad and I, we do not communicate about our top 10s prior. I just like, here's an idea. Does this one specifically? I was like, is there merit to this? Like, is this an idea or is this a dumb idea? And that's pretty much it. I would never have thought of this game in a million years,
Right.
but it works. Like, yeah, this is a combat system in a game. And even if you go like just to go kill a particular monster and that's what you're using to do so, and they die, the fact that you're still rewarded, and then you can sometimes be like, look over at the Valhalla board and be like, oh, hey, all right, cool. It's not punishing in any way versus base
Right.
game. It's like, why the fuck am I doing this? I'm never going down there.
And I think that's the reason I put this as my honorable mention, because battling in this game, it's not the main focus of the game. You know, I mean, it happens a lot.
The main
yes,
focus
but,
is the troll.
well, but it's a worker placement game. It's not a combat. You know, so like
Yeah.
that's why it's up here, because the battling takes place. You get to choose when you want to battle,
Yeah.
instead of it being like every turn you're battling, doing stuff.
Mhm.
And everything
I made a face earlier because you mentioned, kind of build up, and it made me think of another game that I completely forgot about. But I was thinking, oh, Tidal Blades. Tidal Blades has another,
That's true.
unique combat system,
I didn't
but
think about that one either.
right, it's because you mentioned it's not punishing to go back, and I was like, oh yeah, Tidal Blades kind of has that dice build up, and then you go fight. And it's really cool if you fight the monster, but then you kind of lose it all.
Lose everything, yeah.
Yeah. Uh, all right, good choice. Good choice. Okay, my number 10, and this is my last fighting, like pure fighting game, but actually makes into the top 10 because there's no way I couldn't have a unique, like a combat system game without including this one. And I've played a lot of this to fully appreciate the intricacies of this. And I really wish, like, I'm surprised there's actually not a whole lot like a community behind this, or maybe there is, and I just don't like communities.
Mm.
But this is your more pure representation of a 2D fighting game, and that is Battlecon. Battlecon is Level 99's homage to, kind of like the game I mentioned previously, Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, stuff like that, except it's in their own world. I have this one kind of as it's a 2-card system because you have what are they called? They have names, but I'm just gonna go with blue and red. Oh, lame. They're not really showing it. Oh, bases and styles, I think is what they're called. But blue and red. And you have a hand of like 5 cards each of red and blue cards, and you have to make a pair of that. And that is going to, one's the left half, one is the right half. Oh, they do kind of have it on the far end. No, never mind. That's their ultimates. But anyway, so it creates the full attack. And this is your more chess-like, where unlike Street Fighter, where it definitely feels more video gamey, like rolling dice and just doing the combo system, this doesn't have that. But there's like a lot of steps, so it's really getting to the head of your opponent because there is pure, almost 100% knowledge of what your opponent can do. But whenever you're picking your cards, whenever you combo them together, you are basically making your range, your power, and your priority, and all things you have to take into consideration. Your range is obviously how far away you could hit. Power is how much damage you're going to do, and priority is how fast you're going to do it. And you're trying to represent all of that, or take all that into consideration of what your opponent might do. And like I said, you have pure information because you can see what's in your opponent's discard pile, and there's 2 discard piles, and then you have a card of all the cards that they have. So you're just looking at that, thinking what they might do in the particular situation, hoping you're right, and then trying to play cards that are the best, answer to that. This one is so involved. It's not intuitive in any way. I have yet to introduce anyone to this game just because there's a lot of steps to it, but I the one person I do play this with, we love it. There's so many different characters that play radically unique from one another. Hard counters to other characters, great matchups, horrible matchups, like they would be in a video game, where it's like, oh, this person is a really good counter for this person. But that card combo system is what took me, like that's what hooked me the first time I was shown this game. Just and also the sheer amount of fighters is something that I always love in any type of game. It's like, ooh, like they play completely different from one another. There's also, I mean, a bunch of keywords and special abilities I'm not going into, but it's that card crafting, not card crafting, but that combo crafting system in this game that I have never seen anywhere else. It doesn't really belong anywhere. I'm not saying, oh, I want to see this in other games. I don't, because it's enough here, and they have 90 plus fighters. Yeah, I'm pretty sure with the Battlecon Unleash and everything, it's 90. When you look at the box, because I have the 2 boxes for it, and you take them out because they're all in tuck boxes, it doesn't look like 90. It's weird how that, whenever you look at stuff and you're like a tier list or anything, and you're like, oh, there's probably like 7 there. And then you do the math, you're like, okay, that's 10 across, that's 8 down. Oh my God, that's 80. Like, it's crazy. But I've done a full tournament of this. And I mean full, which means there's like 30 fighters in that, of both the beginner, intermediate, and advanced fighters. And then I did a champions tournament of everyone who won those. Is a lot. I had to take a break. I mean, my friend had to hug it out because if you lose this game, it's like deep. It's like a deep cut because you're like, am I the dumbest person alive? It's like if you lose chess, you can't blame anyone but yourself. It's kind of like that. When I lose this game, I'm like, am I bad? No, it's the fighter that's bad. So, but if you really like that head to head, this is one of the best. If you want to get through the nuances of it, it's wonderful. So that's my number 10, Battlecon.
I've played it a couple times, and it's not a bad game at all.
No, it's just, this is kind of one of those that if you want, you need someone who's experienced to be able to kind of walk you through, because there's a lot of micro steps, a lot of like, okay, well, what happens here? Okay, through the order of operations, this goes off first, because we had a really weird scenario that I had yet to ever figure out, based off someone's ultimate, because every fighter has an ultimate. But there's like a fighter who like cancels out the other fighter's like main ability, and it was just a weird scenario, and those can creep up. And so it's like, maybe if there's a community for that who can answer those questions, but you kind of need someone to walk you through the steps to get into it. And maybe it'll hook you, maybe it won't. But yeah, if you do get into it, then it could be a blast. So that's my number 10.
All right. Well, my number 10 is a game that kind of caught me by surprise this last year. And you aren't a huge fan of this one, because I introduced it to you. It's a video game IP.
That is the reason, actually, because you introduced it to me. I'm like, fuck this. This sucks.
There's a few I've introduced to you liked. But yeah, this one is it's a video game IP, and it's on here strictly for the bag, the whatever bag manipulation element, and the attack and that sniper elite, the board game. In this game, it's a 1 versus many, or 1 versus 1. They control all the Nazis, whatever. But when you go into the combat phase of this and you choose to attack as the sniper, you have a bag that's full of chips. There's 3 different kinds of chips in there. There's hits, there's misses, and then there's like noise, or there's hits, jams, and noise tokens. And you can pull out as many chips as you want to. But you're going to, if you make a certain amount of noise, you're going to get located. If you do a certain number of like jams, then your shot doesn't go off and you still get noticed, and stuff like that. But as you kill more of the Nazi soldiers, you get to gain more chips into your bag. So it makes it more, you're just getting more confident, I guess. So you have better odds of hitting the longer the game goes too.
I
And
assumed it was because you were like refining the tweaks, or you were you shot and you're like, oh shit, the wind or something, and then you
Right.
like readjust. Not confident.
Well,
Who I believe in myself. I can really kill this guy now.
I misspoke a second ago, so you don't get comments going. It's not you draw how many chips you want. You have to draw to the range. So
Oh,
like
yeah.
away you draw 5 chip, and then however. So it makes it more likely that you'll miss or something will happen. But I like especially if you have the Kickstarter version with the deluxe chips, stuff like that. There's another game that we just got in Kickstarter that uses the bag and stuff. The Isovarian Guard that does the bag battles stuff a little bit. I mean, it does. It's more involved, Isovarian Guards, but this one is just like you draw chips, you see what happens, you hit, you can manipulate. Like there's certain things that you can add bad things to your bag. That if you get bad things happen to you, you can add good things if you kill soldiers. And I like that element. I prefer that over dice. Like if it was just like, hey, I'm going to attack you, I'm going to roll this dice if I get, whatever.
Yeah.
This one, being able to pull those chips out and being able to kind of push your luck, and think that you can hit or not, stuff like that, is why I guess I need to hit the picture. So yeah, and this is one of my top games that I played over the last year or so. I like the IP, and the game just plays my kind of play style. I like sneaking around and doing stuff, but yeah, there isn't a whole lot that I can think of that uses. I know there's bags and chip and games that do that kind of stuff, but the whole noise mechanic and the missing and all that stuff kind of springs in. Oops, sorry, got silence my phone.
No.
But yeah, so I mean that's why I put this in here at number 10. I the drawing of chips and being able to make it through and everything. It was a fun one. I really like this.
Cool. Yeah, I know I'm definitely the minority on this one. I don't even remember what I gave it. 5, 6, like wasn't like a horrible rating.
It wasn't that. I think like you said, you've played enough of the hidden movement stuff, and it was just kind of
I think it's more of that genre. It's like the ones that I have, because I did a review for Stifling Dark, which was another hidden movement, but that one was very innovative. That once finished, because it was a prototype, I think the final product will be really good. But even then, during the review, I was like, or during the playthrough that I did for it, I was kind of like, yeah, the ones I like, I just really like. You have to be really unique for me to jump into it. Otherwise, I'm just going to be kind of on it.
Yeah, I'm kind of hoping that they do. The popularity of this game is pretty good. I mean, it's so I hope that the Renegade Unplugged, I think is the name of the company.
I think it's
or something Unplugged. But Rebellion Unplugged. That's what it is. They need to come out with another Kickstarter. Add some more maps and some more, stuff like that.
Well, they got 5 games to pick from. They certainly can.
Yeah. So, well, they're a video game company, and then they go into board games and stuff. So, but yeah. Anyway, that's my number 10.
Sniper All right. My number 9 is definitely one that will be on your list, if not way higher. And this is kind of one of the first games that I had played that was innovative with its dice, and has continued to do so. Hell, even beyond its dice, it's completely innovative. It is what's called a dice building RPG game, which sounds completely dumb, but it's really cool, and that is Too Many Bones. Too Many Bones. Yeah, so a dice builder RPG. It's like, well, what is that? Well, that's because it's an RPG that when you're building up your character, you use dice. And normally that would be completely See, here's a reasonable person playing Boomer solo, not what was it,
It's
Patches?
Patches, that one.
Hey, well, the guy quit posting pictures because we roasted him. Yeah, he weirdly watched that one top 10. It's like, oh, I'm done.
This plebe though is using the cheap health tokens instead of the
God, why
premier
is
health
everyone
tokens.
poor? This fucking loser. No, so yeah, so this game, every character has like their own unique dice set that whenever you are gaining combat points, you can spend those on either upgrading your stats, health, attack, dexterity, or defense, or gaining unique dice for a particular build. And every character has 4 ways that they can technically be built. Like if you and I really like that. Like it's like, oh, if you want to go the bomber route, then just pick all of these dice. Like for Boomer, it's like pick all the red dice.
Mhm.
You don't have to do that for any reason, but if you're gonna go that way, you can only pick like the star ones, like the frag grenade. You have to pick the frag before you can get the big boom upgrade. Hence the RPG. And if you look over on the left of this picture, it shows you all the dice for that particular class and kind of all the different faces and all the icons and all that. So that's the main crux of why I put that on here. I think for my label, I put dice building because there's not a lot of games that do. I mean, I can't think of any game that utilizes dice as an upgrade tree. But it's
Well,
so much fun. It's very cool because whenever you go into combat, how many dice you can roll equals your dexterity, and that's any combination of regular attack, defense dice, and your unique dice. And your, of course, the regular attack or defense are just static defense or attack damage. But then your unique dice are how your class comes into play, and every single class plays radically different from one another. There's there's not even one that's like, oh, that's kind of like that. No, like it's amazing at how innovative they've been able to make each class play. And then you go into the actual combat, which at first you would be I feel like a lot of people might be disappointed because it's like you feel like you should be moving around. You feel like you should be doing actual tactile miniatures combat, but it's not at all. Really, the combat is more of a puzzle. Like every single chip that comes in has keywords on it that you're kind of when they're all placed out, you're really just trying to figure out how you can use your classes and your dice to beat the puzzle of the scenario that's before you. And I also think that's unique to this game because there are other games have like Cloud Spire is your MOBA style, which you can get your miniatures based combat off that. Hoplomachus is kind of the same way, so it fits. Like I like the fact that it's like you do set up the board and you do move around. Like it's not like you're just placing them there for no reason, but it's not at all like what you would expect from any other game. So it's like, okay, in what order do we want to deal with this? If this guy goes, then they're going to do this, which is going to buff these other people, and that means they're going to run up and hit us, and we need to survive. A lot of the game is about building your character, and I enjoy that a lot. So at some point, Brad and I will do our ranking of the gear locks. Who knows when that'll be? Whenever
yeah, 'cause I just got 5 or 6 more in my this Kickstarter that I'm gonna try now.
Man, what's that like getting your shit before like because you know what? From now on, whenever we do Kickstarters that are the same, I'm just gonna put your address.
Put my address,
Like,
or I just back 2 copies of it and add one with Best
exactly.
Magazine, baby.
Yeah, because they always tell me they're like getting ready to ship your stuff, and I'm like, are you? Because it's always like months later.
Well, because my stuff always comes through Kansas City. It comes through Kansas City and then
I
down.
know. Maybe they don't want to drive through Independence because it's a trash city. I hate this place.
No, what I was going to say about this real quick is just it still astounds me to this day, even playing with the core stuff, like the amount of thought and detail went into creating these characters and everything, and how they're so unique, and the skill trees are are super creative. I mean,
Yeah.
this game is just it takes a lot to
It does.
learn a gear lock, one of the characters, but once you can play them a few times and get to understand them, then it really opens up for you.
Yeah. And
Some
synergies between number of players too,
right,
because
right.
like whenever we do our ranking, I've ranked them based off pure solo, like
Mm.
how I like take one gear lock and play it. Uh, and I mean, some of them are really bad by themselves, but I'm like, oh, this would be really good if I had literally another player. Um, but yeah, and because you're not going to be able to max out, like you do not get enough points in a run, I guess, to I mean, you can either multi-class or you can kind of go all in on one, and that's pretty much it because you're gonna want to upgrade your stats.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can't just be like, I'll just keep my base health and dex. It's like, yeah, if Boomer has a health of 3, she's probably gonna die.
Right. Unless
So
Patches is with her.
yeah, but Patches has only played solo, as we've seen.
Not
You
not
know,
not
he's
not
not
my
doing
house.
anything. He's not doing anything, but he's not dying either. All
Right.
the enemies are like, "Why won't you die?" He's like, "You'll like, I'll live forever." Yeah, it's there's a lot. There's a lot to this game. And it's great. It's great. How's that trove chest coming?
I have I got everything to fit. Um,
Okay.
the I had to take out, like, you cannot have doubles of anything. Like, you can only have one set of attack and defense dice
Wow.
in there.
Okay.
So like I have a whole set of all these extra dice because each core set, and you've gotten
Yeah.
undertow and all those
Oh
have
yeah,
all
you're
that stuff.
right.
So you need to take all those dice out. You need to
Damn.
take any extra chips out that
Okay.
they're doubled or any of that stuff. So it's like I got it all to fit. My biggest issue right now is because I watched their video of
Hmm.
how they were proving how everything fits. I don't see, because it shows when he was doing that deal, it only shows two, maybe three cases of the baddies, of those little
Okay.
chip holders with the baddies.
Yeah.
I can't get it under, like, I have to have four, and I don't know what the difference is. Like, I've taken
Huh.
out everything I can
Did
take
they
out,
do? I
and
feel
this
like I
was
saw
everything.
someone. I feel
Oh,
like I saw someone like ask for the version 2 trove chest. Did they do an updated trove chest or
I
something?
think it's the exact same thing though.
Okay.
The specs didn't change.
Okay.
Um,
Oh yeah,
but
I couldn't, right? It
right,
barely fits the calyx.
right.
Hmm.
So it's like I don't like, so I have them all in there. It fits four things. One of those whole drawers is four of those containers in a row,
Yeah.
but they're
But you
they're
got
not supposed to.
yeah.
Like, I had to force something in elsewhere, and then I can't
Weird.
figure out how to, those stupid little chip dividers that you put the little
Yeah.
circles, that the baddie dividers of multi different
Yeah.
classes and all that crap. Those are all sorts of a mess. I don't even have those in right now.
Yeah.
So I mean, they're in the trove chest. That's
All
that's where we're
right.
at right now.
Well, whenever I get my stuff, I'll figure it out. But anyway, that's
Yeah.
neither here nor there. That's my number 9, Too Many Bones.
All right. So my number 9 is a game that I debated putting on this list or not. But there is a lot of combat in this game, and I am a card player, so I like my combat done with cards. Um, and this is where it uses cards as currency in order to do special attacks, and that is Marvel Champions.
Interesting. Okay.
Because you have attacks cards and you
Yeah,
need to spend currency to do the attacks.
I did
Um,
consider this one. It did pass through my mind, but then for some reason I almost immediately discounted it.
yeah, and like I said, it's kind of right on that edge. I mean, it's
Yeah.
you are in a big, massive combat with minions and a super
Yeah.
villain. And then in order to, I mean, you can just do your basic tap attack,
Hmm.
but when you any of those attack cards that are in your deck, in order to play them, you spend cards, and all the cards are going to have different icons in the bottom left corner, and you have to spend that many icons to pay for the cost of the card,
Hmm.
to do that set attack, or defense or whatever you're trying to accomplish in your battle phase. And some cards may have multiple resources on them, so and different stuff like that. So this is just one that I like that puzzle, because we've played through several scenarios now and little of those campaigns and stuff with this, and finally getting that with Spectrum and just finding that sweet spot with her and just kicking ass and everything. And it was all about making sure you had the right cards to spin to do this and this and this and everything. And it just, that's why it's on here. Just using the cards. And sometimes you have to make tough decisions. You're giving up cards as currency that you may want to use, but you need to get off this attack to finish off something. So it just kind of tickles my brain the right way for this kind of stuff,
And with all the heroes playing different, still to this day, they're releasing like heroes, and you're like, how have you not like recycled ideas? Like even characters that like use special tokens where it's like, oh man, it's a token hero, still feel completely different. And that could be because of theme could go a long way. But yeah, like this one's so good.
They've definitely slowed down in their release of characters. I think they're because there's more to play test them against, and stuff.
I can see that.
I think that's why they've slowed down a lot.
Yeah, because who's the next one's coming out?
They've only announced the one of two right now.
Oh, because it's part of that box. They're doing the X-Force.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's going to be Cable and Shadowcat, I think, are the two in that box. But then they've announced one other pack.
Yeah.
And they haven't announced the other pack because usually they release them in twos. So they haven't said anything about the other one yet.
They're probably trying to figure out how to make Deadpool.
I know Deadpool's
every card's just blank. You write in your own answer.
Yeah. Yep. That would make sense. But anyway, my number 9 Marvel Champions. That whole card currency thing is why it's on here.
Yeah, I cannot argue. I think what I was looking for, but I'm incorrect. Is like initially I thought of it and I was like, well, I guess that's the only thing you're doing. But then I have Battlecon on here, so I can't be the reason. So I don't know.
Yeah.
But still, good choice. My number 8 is one of the only games on here that is, well, that's not true. Sorry. Funny enough, I said I don't have like Arkham Horror or Eldritch Horror because all you do is like roll 5s and 6s. This is one of the few, if not only, skirmish game that I have played that has dice-based combat that I actually think is super fun. And because most of the time, skirmish games for me are very frustrating when you do a lot of like build up and maneuvering and tactile decisions, and then you're like, I hope it succeeds. Oh, it didn't. I guess I just wasted 10 minutes. So that was fun for me. But this game, you're almost guaranteed to at least get one hit, but it feels so epic whenever you're doing it. So my number 8 is Mythic Battles. Pantheon specifically, because Ragnarok is not out yet. And I'm so glad that this is a monolith game and not a Mythic game, because I'd probably have to spend another $600 to even get this fucking thing. As far as I am aware, that's not happening. In fact, I think their latest update stated that the whole thing was going to be coming out this year, because I went all in for Ragnarok and Pantheon. But yeah, this is a massive skirmish game where it's gods fighting one another, and then you have heroes and then you have monsters. So you build out your team, really in just whatever you have available. And you have 2 ways to win. You can either get the whatever crystals, I don't remember what they're called. I think you have to get 2 of them back to your base, or you can kill the other person's god. So at least that's there, but it is card driven. Like you have your own deck, but it's not like the cards don't have like special abilities. It's really more of who you can activate, kind of like Memoir 44, where it's like, oh, I can activate the left side. This is like, okay, I have god cards in my hand, so I can play a god card to activate my god. So it's a little bit of strategy with that, but what I put is like exploding sixes. That's not what it is, but it's the closest I can think of that. So everyone has a defense that is unhittable based off of just regular D6s. However, whenever you are rolling your dice, you kind of take sixes and set them off to the side, and however many sixes you get, that's the extra dice that you can roll. So you get like a second battle phase that you roll those dice, and then you add those to the sixes. It's very weird. I had to be walked through it the first time. It's like the first time I was actually had to have my hand held. It's like, okay, now 6 plus 5 is 11. You compare that to the defense of 10. That is 1 hit.
This
And
was
I'm like,
it confused the crap out of because Chad had all this,
okay.
and we played a 4-player.
Ooh, interesting.
Like everybody all for themselves,
Yeah.
one, and that dice thing just tripped us up every single damn time.
Dude,
until towards the end of the game,
Yeah, whenever you're like, oh my god, I get it. Because they use I guess they are D6s, but they're all blanks, and blanks are just true misses. So you have some push your luck. So you can decide how much you want to roll and how much you want to keep. Unless you roll a blank, your blanks are just dead dice. But it just feels so powerful that whenever you are like, because all the heroes have special abilities, all the gods, it's so cool, and the team build is extremely fun. But yeah, whenever you're going in there and you're just really getting into like these massive, gods fighting one another, that whenever you roll and then you roll really well, or even not so well, you can still at least get like 1 hit, and it doesn't feel wasted. Like, yeah, you're tricking them down, and 1 hit against Zeus is not that big of a deal, but it's still 1 hit against a way to win.
Right.
But that dice system is the best way I can think of doing it in a skirmish game, because the skirmish games I do like have no dice in them, like Summoner Wars. I mean, I guess Summoner Wars does have dice, but with the second edition, you're also basically guaranteed to hit. Very rare to miss.
Right.
But yeah, it's completely unique, and sometimes you have really massive hits that it's like, it doesn't sound like a lot, but you're like, that's 3 hits, and you're like, 3? What the fuck? That's like half my health. So that, on top of all the cool, unique powers from everyone, really makes us. I'm very excited to get everything for it. It's going to be a lot. And I know for a fact that the Ragnarok and Pantheon can be combined, so you can finally do the 2 massive Pantheon games with Greek and Norse.
Yeah, this was one that I really wanted to get into, but because it had some solo cooperative scenarios.
Okay.
There's a whole scenario book, so there's all for everyone for themselves. There's some of them's team games, some of them are, at least in Pantheon. I don't know about Ragnarok.
I think probably Ragnarok has the same.
So, and then there was like 1v1, 2v2.
Okay.
There were some solo cooperative, but there was just a few of the solo cooperatives. So I was like,
I see.
I'm spending all that money to get, but I really liked the game. It was a really fun game. The drafting of your army at the very beginning.
Yeah.
Because you set out the points, and everything has a point value, so you can pick like, I think I had Achilles, the big lion, and then like you pick like a little group of soldiers, like the Spartans or something, and so it's like a little group. So you had all those mixed together fighting. It's really neat how they put this together.
Yeah, it's widely known that Achilles goes by Unchilles because he is virtually unkillable. Because he has a very basic ability. I think he ignores 1 damage, like every time he's hit, and that's like, it's like it's insane. It's insane because he hits so hard, and ignoring 1 damage, like I just said, is a lot.
Well, if only they knew where his weak point was.
That's true. There's probably one other character that's like, you can like attack, like you can ignore like someone's toughness ability, and he's like, haha, that ankle bitch, I'm gonna fucking get you. Yeah, it's epic. I really enjoy this. This is the only game on my list that I don't own. But I guess I technically own it because I've paid for it. I just don't have it.
Yeah.
And with that Mythic games shit that they've been pulling, I've been like every
Right.
update I get, I'm like going through it, like how much you asking me to pay extra? Because I did it. I paid extra for Rainbow Six.
You did.
I did. I mean,
Uh,
it's either I pay the extra $150 or I lose 400. You know,
well, they were doing refunds on it.
they're like so backlogged. They have four
Really?
people working for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, their refund system. So many people. I mean, people have asked for refunds years ago,
Gotcha.
and they weren't getting it. I'm like, they're not doing refunds.
Hmm.
So it's like I'd rather get the game, pay the extra now, and sure I get a copy. Because the people who paid extra for Darkest Dungeon at least got their copy. I'd rather be the few that got it and just bitch about that I had to pay more.
Yeah.
But going forward, I will never back a Mythic game again.
Yeah.
So the
Exactly.
games I did pay for, I might as well just get. Is
Yep.
how I justified it in my brain.
That'll work.
So that's my number 8, Mythic Battles, Pantheon,
Right. My
Ragnarok.
number, my number 8 is a game that I don't intentionally put this on every one of my lists, but it just happens to fall that way because it has a lot of different variation to it and stuff. It is on this list. It does have dice resolution, kind of like what you were talking about with this, but it's on here because it's a combination of dice resolution and multi-use cards. Um, and that is Fireteam Zero.
I figured this would be on your list.
Yeah, and like I said, it does come down to dice rolls, of course. But those cards being split and being an offensive ability, or it can be played off when it's not your turn to help somebody else with a defensive ability or maybe a retaliate ability or something like that. This one is just one of those that it's a very well, in my experience with it, it gets pretty stressful at certain times because the beasts just keep coming, and your hand of cards is your life. You don't draw up until the beginning of your next turn, so you'll have so well, let's say you have 5 cards and you use one of them for your offense, and then it's just somebody else's turn, and you use 2 of those cards on their turn to help them out. That leaves you with 2. But then before you redraw up, the bad guys still get to attack. so
Yeah.
so it's like you have to really, really think about whether you're going to help somebody or not. They are powerful abilities, but ultimately, like I said, there's the dice resolution. You have your melee and your ranged attack. You roll these dice. They're d6s, but they're unique faced. They have different amounts of hits on them on different sides, and it's just a fast paced deal. I like multi use cards. I mean, any game that has multi use cards, that's a big bonus. Because it may just gives you that many more options. Especially in a co-op game where you're helping out everybody and it's complete chaos when this game's going. And then the dice are they're fair. Like they don't hose you a whole lot. I mean, you can pretty much guarantee that because the beasts aren't unbeatable. They just respawn really fast. So you are doing a lot of damage. You feel like a badass. And everything, but and you can upgrade your cards throughout your scenarios and missions to make them stronger versions of what they are, or kind of form your character a little differently depending on how you want to play with them. But that's why I have it on here. Just having the combination of dice resolution as well as the multi-use cards for combat and defense is why it's on here, because you can use it when they're attacking you. You can even use those cards as a defense to help other players and stuff too. So it just kind of rounds out, makes the battles a little more fulfilling, I think.
It's a good system. Like I have no complaints. I did consider this one as well, but it'd been so long since I've played it that I couldn't quite remember. But I actually had a pretty decent short list for this one, so it just didn't quite make it.
Right.
So yeah, that card system is really nice. It's just this game is brutal.
It is.
All right, my number 7 is technically 2 games, but they're probably really considered the same game. It could be theoretically 3 games. I would imagine is higher on your list as well, maybe, if you considered it. This is something I'm also calling the 2-card system, but it's done in a different way than Battlecon. But this game, you also have to play 2 cards. You just have a little bit more options about what you're going to do with those 2 cards. And this is a massive RPG game that I am currently in the middle of another campaign, and that is. Hey, all right. Has both of them on there. Gloomhaven and Frosthaven. Pick your poison. Third one could be Jaws of the Lion. But I mean, every scenario is a dungeon crawl. There's not like you're not in combat in this game ever. But every character, actually, that Gloomhaven at this point is the wrong cover. They have a new cover now.
Yeah, I guess
for the 2nd edition, which the 2nd edition cover I think actually looks way better. It's so cool. And I in Gloomhaven had made my top 10 box art. Anyway, in Gloomhaven, you have a unique character, so you can see a theme here that I love about games is just different characters and different ways to play them, and a leveling up system. But every character has a certain amount of cards they can have in their hand. I was gonna say deck, but no, in their hand. And on your turn, everyone has to pick 2 cards to play, and these cards, kind of like Fireteam Zero, are multi-use. They have it's your initiative, and it has a top action and a bottom action. Typically, your bottom action is going to be your movement, and the top action is going to be an attack, but that's not always the case. And they're all specially designed for the character that you are playing. So you pick 2, and then you pick the initiative that you're going to do. I have yet to ever really pick a very low initiative. Like I've yet to be like, oh, how are the enemies going to go? Do I want to go after them? Because you almost never want to go after the enemy. But you're kind of picking your initiative based off when you want, like your ally to go. Like, oh, I want you to go so you can generate this element that I can use on my turn. Anyway, so you pick your initiative, and then whenever you flip your cards, you have to do the top action of one and the bottom action of another. But depending on what the enemies do and kind of what your allies might do, you at least have some freedom to be like, well, I wanted to do this top action, but now that doesn't work anymore, so I can do this. So you're not hard set on what you're playing, but you are still kind of soft limited. And then as the game goes on, eventually you will run out of cards in your hand. You always have to play 2 cards. So if you cannot, you either have to long rest, which allows you to kind of heal and choose the card you discard, or choose the card you lose. Or you can short rest, quickly get your cards back, and then you randomly have to lose 1 card. Over the course of the scenario, you will eventually run out of cards, and that's how you get exhausted. It's a brilliant system, one that no one's replicated. You can't really. If someone does it, then it's kind of like you just ripped off Gloomhaven. But man, it's so clean. It's such a clean design, in my head anyway, that out of all the campaign RPG games that I have played, this is the one that the rules have just really stuck. Like a lot of other campaign games, I just kind of, whenever I come back to play it, I'm like, all right, so how does this work again? But something about Gloomhaven and Frosthaven has just really stuck with me. That 2-card system might not sound thematic or anything, but it really does. If you really get it, like the characters, the names on the cards just feel like you. Like if you're playing the Brute, you feel like a fast-moving, I guess depending on how you build them, because all the characters can be built differently, like a tanky, hard-hitting motherfucker. If you want to play in Frosthaven, one of the starting characters is the Blink Blade, and they can kind of adjust how quickly they can go. You really feel like you're just zooming in and out. Every character feels like the character that they are meant to be. They feel completely unique. It's not like even the rogues, like in Gloomhaven, if you're just playing the rogue and you're like, wow, I know how they play, it just feels so cool. There's so much depth to these characters that just scratches my brain, and it's it's a system that I loved from the get-go. And it's a tried and true system because Brad hated it and now he loves it.
Thank God to Jaws of the Lion. I mean,
That is true.
that's what saved this for me. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, that was something. Just that 5 mission tutorial at the beginning is just that's perfect.
Yeah. Yep. So and if you're wondering which one to get, Gloomhaven. Get Gloomhaven first, and then we'll get Jaws of the Lion first. If you love that, then get Gloomhaven, and then if you still love it, then get Frosthaven.
Yep.
I would agree. If you still love that, then get Gloomhaven second edition, apparently.
Well, or because I've thought about getting Crimson. Is it Crimson Skies or Crimson? It's that fan made that whole big box, but it's apparently just seamless, just like playing Gloomhaven is another big box.
Yeah, and I think they're going on. They're going for another reprint.
Yeah,
because I got an email
that, but I'm just like so much Haven in my life.
I know there's not enough. Well, it's also mainly because for me, it kind of becomes more of the classes. Like I want more classes, so it's like Crimson Scales, the fan made one, adds a bunch more that you can just plug and play. Like if you have Frosthaven and Gloomhaven, you can take you can be like, oh, I want to play the Tinkerer in Frosthaven. Well, you can.
Yep.
I think you just have to go online and print off their character sheet, because the character sheets are a little bit different in Frosthaven, but that's very simple to do. But yeah, that is my number 7, Gloomhaven / Frosthaven.
Perfect. Well, my number 7 is a new game, just came out this year, and actually we're still getting parts of it this year. And it's on here strictly because of one of the aspects of their attacking stuff, and that is going to be Marvel Zombies.
Oh, okay.
This one on here, I mean, it's a dice checker. You're rolling dice just like you do in any other zombie side game.
Mm-hmm.
The reason it is on this though is because of the hunger. The hunger track on the boards. Because that hunger track, it almost has that Cthulhu Death May Die feel. Like you almost want your hunger to build because you're rolling more dice. When the hungrier you are, so you're more powerful and you get to do more stuff. But if it hits that 4 mark at the top of this track right here, then you become what's the word?
Ravaging?
Ravenous. I think it's ravenous.
Ravenous, okay.
Like and then you cannot use all your abilities go away and everything. The only thing you can do is do the devour deal. And then once you devour a bystander, a person or whatever, then your hunger goes back down to 0 and you start going back. But it's that whole push your luck thing, because whenever you're rolling all these dice, anytime you roll like the teeth thing, the mouth, your hunger goes up. So if you roll multiple deals, they can jump up, making you more powerful. But then there's that tipping point, Yeah. And
if you get swarmed quick,
right,
so it's you don't want to waste an action.
Right. And then when you actually devour certain bystanders, like some of the special bystanders, you actually get like they have a Koye down here, and that was somebody that Hulk devoured, and then you get this ability since you devoured them. But just having that option in there and that push your luck, because like on Cthulhu Death May Die, you go more insane. But the more insane you go, the stronger you get. So it's like this whole deal. This one is a smaller track, but you can push your luck. You want to get hunger so that you're more strong. And then if you don't happen to devour on your turn and you stay ravenous, then you lose a health point. So it's like
so
it's like there's all this cool stuff that you can do with this game. This is, in my opinion, the best zombie side game. Not just because of the theme necessarily, but having that hunger track just adds that little bit of just enough to make it interesting over all the others that I've played.
I watched Dice Tower do their review over the Wanted Dead or Alive, and it had some cool systems in there too, but I'm just gonna pick one zombie side. Like
This is it. If you just get
yeah,
one,
Black
this is the
Plague
one you get.
Black Plague is good. I'm sure White Death is gonna be just as good,
Mhm.
if not better. But yeah, this one is a theme that I'd rather get behind. And I did. So
And
there's all.
Galactus should be getting to us here in probably about a month or a month
And
and a
then they're
half.
going to release a scenario where you can do the giant Galactus versus the giant Cthulhu.
Sweet, and I'd buy it.
And I'd like to say that I don't know who would win, but it's Galactus.
Galactus probably would, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, yep.
But that is interesting to think about, like, because technically they're old ancient gods, but Galactus is also a god. Yeah, I agree. I don't know why I don't have zombies like Marvel Zombies or the New Descent. Like, I don't know why I don't have them
That's
on this
true.
list because
I
they,
consider that one too.
yeah, I don't even think I did. Maybe I just forgot about it because I was just, they're very solid combat systems.
Yep.
Yeah, this is a good one. All right, my number 6 is a game I don't think that you have played, and this is probably the closest to a Euro game that I have. Even though no, it has zero dice on it, uh, and it's what I have coined as kind of programming spells. Um, so if you're noticing a theme, variety is a huge thing that I take into consideration, especially during this list of just because if you're gonna be doing a lot of combat, it cannot get stale or it can't like there's a lot that goes into making fun combat systems, and I think this game has a really, really fun one, and that is
Oh, sorry. It's going.
oh my God,
There we
Brad,
go.
way to Black Rose Wars is my number 6. I just go on this huge tangent. Yeah, so this is a game that I do not see getting a lot of buzz. Like no one really talks about it, which is very surprising to me because it's to me one of the best Magic kind of spell games out there.
The new stuff new stuff will be delivering here in like 2 or 3 months, so that'll probably bring it back to
yeah,
the front again.
that's true, but God, there's just so much. So in Black Rose Wars, it's completely card based. You do some slight deck building, but not really. It's not like there's not like a river or market of cards that you buy from. You just basically pick schools of Magic, and whenever it's your time to pick cards, you just pick a school, and you just top deck and put it, and then you just decide which ones you want to keep, and that's what's available to you. But each of these spells basically kind of they also have a top and a bottom ability on them. And the different schools of Magic have different ways that they play. And so it's a lot of different synergies of kind of what route you want to go in the terms of, what you want to do during the game. And whenever I mean programming spells is on your dashboard, you can kind of see it on this picture, is you have a spell 1, 2, and 3, and then a quick spell. Well, the quick spell is the one you can do at any time on your turn, unless it's a trap or something, but you still have to kind of activate it. But then whenever you do your other spells, you have to start with the one in slot 1, then 2, and then 3. So there's a lot of kind of reading what your opponents might do, or what, again, you want to do if you're not interacting with them, and putting that in order. That is something that I have yet to see kind of in a combat game where you're trying to kill your other mages or defeat your other mages, because this is a victory point game. So by defeating other mages or dealing damage to them, and when they die, if you're the one that dealt the most damage, you get more points and you get trophies. Be like, I'm the one who killed them, which is end game points. But it's that variety of the Magic schools, which there's so many that they've made, and the programming aspect that really just makes this game sing for me. I mean, I like just picking the schools is so much fun. Like what I've done is, like, the last time I played this is I had our respective schools of the mages we picked, and then I just had, because there were 3 of us, I think you pick 6 schools, and then there's the forbidden deck that's always there. but it's like, okay, here's our three. Like I'm destruction, your transfiguration, and your divinity, and then now everyone just pick out of these 20, pick which one you want to do, and we'll just see how this game goes. It's magical, if I if I can say so. But also the fact this would probably not be as fun. It'd still be really cool with that programming system, but also the fact that every card has 2 abilities also makes it just that much more innovative. And with that sheer amount of variety, like we mentioned, multi-use cards. I mean, the amount of content in this game is fantastic. So I absolutely love it. The new content that you mentioned is including so many more schools that are completely unique. Like there are some that I would have never considered as a school of magic, but they got it. I think one of the ones I did last time was actually like cosmic horror. Like it was very Cthulhu-esque as a school of magic, and it's just badass. Like if you want a heavier dueling mages game, this is the one to get. Like if you want a lighthearted, fun one that's whimsy and you just want to get shit faced and laugh, then get Wiz War. If you want something even crazier than that, then get Epic Spell Wars.
Yep.
But this is one I picked for its combat system because I think it's better than those other 2.
Yeah, I haven't played this yet. I have a lot of the first stuff for this.
I have, I know there's solo mode. I haven't tried it.
It's the Inferno.
I think so. Yeah, there's like
That's what
a
it's called.
campaign that came with it, and yeah, it's solo
I
mode.
don't have that one yet, but
And I have not played this at 2. I don't know how good it is.
yeah,
If you try to do a 1v1, but the fact that it's not like Last Wizard Standing is definitely a positive in my book.
Yeah.
Looking at Black Rose Wars real quick to see what most people say it's best with 4. No one recommends it at 2.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So I've played it mostly at 3, and I think it's really good at 3. Like this is actually one where if you're getting ganged up on, it's not that big of a deal. Because kind of like Adrenaline, where once you're defeated, you're not that enticing to go attack because you're not that close to death, so you're just gonna naturally focus on the person who's been alive.
Yeah. Yep.
It'd be interesting if they did the diminishing returns. Like Adrenaline is like, oh, you were killed, now you're worth less points. That was a really cool way to be like, okay, quit fucking me over, guys. Like, why are you like at this point it's personal because I'm worth 1 point and he's worth 10. Like you're just attacking me for no reason now. Black Rose Wars doesn't quite have that, but still you're naturally gonna be like, okay, you're finally dead. You have some damage. Now I'm gonna start attacking you.
Yeah. Yep. I'll get it played at some point. All right. So my number 6 is our first crossover.
Nice. Gloomhaven?
Nope.
Oh, well then I don't know. I mean, it'd be the other one. It'd be the other game I've mentioned, unless you're really into Battlecon. Okay.
It's too many bones.
I thought this would be way higher because of your boner for chip theory.
Oh, it's when we made this list, number 1 and number 2 were I knew my number 1, number 2 immediately.
Gotcha.
And then it just kind of trickled from there.
Okay.
One of them coming up is a game you detest, so we'll get to that in a little bit. But
okay, cool.
But yeah, too many bones for everything you said. I mean, the dice building, creating your character. You know, there isn't really much more to say than what we covered on the last time. You know, just being able to. I guess the one thing we didn't talk about was the bones.
How sexy the gear locks are. Yeah.
Because like when you roll bones, they're not great for you, but then you can use them later on.
But they can be.
They could, depending on the thing. Yeah. So I mean, there's if you have a big roll where it's just all a bunch of bones, I mean, it isn't a bad thing.
That does suck. But also I like the fact that if you like you're not set on the things you roll. Like if you like on that boom counter or whatever, I guess you probably don't roll that, but if you roll a die and you're like, that's like the worst result on that, you don't have to use it. You just put it back. I like that. I like how it's not like, oh nope, you rolled it, you have to exhaust it. It's like, that's
Yeah.
fucking annoying. Yeah, even though it is dice, you have a lot of control over it.
Yep. So really, there isn't much more to say about it. We kind of covered this one
Cool.
pretty in depth anyway. But yeah, Too Many Bones, my number 6.
Good deal. All right, my number 5 is definitely the newest game on this list. And funny enough, when I initially made it, I had not personally played the game yet. But I had watched a lot of playthroughs of it, and I'm like, that's very innovative. And you might be like, well, why would you put it on the list if you didn't? And to that, I would say I have played it now. So, and it still fits in this spot. I would have adjusted it if it hadn't, okay? If it sucked, but it doesn't suck. It's very cool and it's innovative and it could go up or it could go down. My number 5 is Isovarian Guard.
I did
Something you
not put
mentioned.
this one on this because I hadn't played it enough yet.
Well, play it for another
No, I know. I
5
just
hours. I don't know.
hadn't.
This one, yeah, this one is definitely unique. You mentioned Sniper Elite with the chip, kind of like bag combat. And at the time of whenever I was playing this, I was like, no one has done this. And I completely forgot about Sniper Elite, but it's not quite the same. Like this is definitely a lot more involved
It
and it's
is.
using,
Yeah.
it also utilizes special cards. Like every guard has a different way that they play. And to be fair, at the time of this recording, I clearly have not beaten this game. There is so
Oh
much
gosh,
to it.
no.
And I have an actual job that I have to go to, so I don't have all the time in the world to sink into this. But between the two starting guards, Grigory and Alec, God, could you imagine knowing someone named Grigory?
Hurry.
Like, and he goes by Grig.
Yeah.
Like, I'd be like, what the fuck is wrong with you? But in this game, yeah, it's chip bag building. That whenever it's on your turn, you have action points. You know, it's funny. That table alone looks like it's like, oh man, that's a lot of stuff. But yeah, it's really not.
It's a
Like
small
it,
table.
that's really what it is. Yeah, they got one of those TV trays
Yeah.
and set up the whole game on that. No, the game is kind of like a table hog for the sake of being a table hog, honestly, with how small of a what you actually interact with. Anyway, but every character obviously has health, attack, and defense, and then they have another sideboard that, or actually you can kind of see it up at the top above Gregory's thing. That's his like abilities board. And each card and ability you have has a chip requirement for you to activate them. So on your turn, you are drawing a number of chips from your bag equal to your action points. And there's different colored chips, like the purple, purple and green do not contribute to the bag or to your action point chip draw. Only the black chips count. So there's kind of a random element on what you're doing, but you definitely want to load your bag up with as many green chips as you want to get a maximum turn. All the abilities are unique. All the characters feel different in how they play. Just these two alone are radically different from one another. But it's really engaging. And one of my favorite things actually about this game is the fact that there is not any type of miniature skirmish thing. It's purely like when you're getting into combat, it's the quickest form of combat you can honestly get into. It's just and for fuck's sake, it needs to be because you're probably fighting a lot. You move and you have a chance of fighting, and it's like, okay, boom, we're fighting this enemy. Grab it and put it in there, and shuffle the deck, and then you're off. So it needs to be extremely quick, and it feels engaging. It feels thematic so far. So, like I said, I'm only into chapter 2 of the fifth campaign. What? Of the first campaign. So we'll see how it goes from there. Every character has their own skill tree that they can go up on. So it can like go up or it can go down from here depending on how engaging the combat continues to feel. But I can still say this game probably wouldn't be as engaging if it wasn't for the narrative focus. So we'll see. Like, this is right in the middle of combat systems. I really do find that chip bag thing completely engaging and fun and interactive the entire time, and not completely luck based. Like, you're almost guaranteed to do something.
Hmm.
So I enjoy it. I think it's very very unique. So that's my number 5, Isovarian Guard.
Yeah, it's probably, if I would have played it a few more, I probably would have considered it. I had this list pretty already made before I started playing it, so I just kind of,
Yeah.
it's one that I definitely would. It probably would have been in my top 10 if with a couple more plays and stuff.
Yeah. Whenever I put this
It probably would have knocked Sniper Elite off. Like it probably would have
gotcha.
spot.
Yeah, whenever I put this one on here, I had just watched like a full playthrough of it, and I'm like, yeah, I can really get into this, but we hadn't solidified, the PowerPoint or anything like that. So I was
Right.
like, I knew whenever I was getting it played, so I was like, okay, if it sucks, then I can just be like, hey, I need to make an adjustment. But yeah, right in the middle, and it's appropriate because kind of right now, my ranking of this is an 8, which is still good. But this is kind of one of those games that, as we keep playing, it could go up. Like, I could get really, really into it, or it can go down if I'm like, oh god, I can't do another fucking combat. So it's right in the middle of this, but I still think the combat system is a lot of fun and very quick. That's the linchpin of it, honestly, is how fast and engaging it is.
Mm-hmm. And Foreteller, gotta love the Foreteller.
It's so good.
Always.
It's so good.
Yeah, that's a good one for sure. All right, my number 5 is a game that I kind of brought up in passing with a game I talked about just a little bit ago, and it's on here because it actually really leans on the effect that I'm talking about, and that is Cthulhu Death May Die.
Nice.
This one, it's you're chucking dice like wildfire in this game, and and it's a tense game. There's a lot of stuff going on, but that cool mechanic, just like I said with the hunger track of Marvel Zombies, this one, you're going to go insane in this game. Every time you roll one of those tentacles, you go up on your insanity track. But you can play that because there's different benchmarks in your insanity track that let you level up. So if let's say you're one spot away from a level up spot on that insanity track, and you can really push your luck and just roll as many tentacles as you want because you can only get that one. So that's when you want to kind of gamble and just go balls to the wall because once you hit that level up spot, you kind of stop, level up. But then if you get to the end, you die. So down here, like on her track, there's all these circles. If that insanity gets cleared down here to the end, you're done. But the more insane you go, the more times every time you get to one of these benchmarks, you level up, and your abilities. Most of the characters have some pretty damn badass abilities once it starts going, and when you look at the dice focus on this, you have most of the time you have your normal hits, but then when you have the stars, the elder signs start becoming hits for certain people depending on stuff. So some of these may be multiple hits, some of the dice, they may have the hit and the elder sign, so that becomes 2 hits, or different stuff. So the dice are unique enough, and then they also there's 2 different color dice. So the green dice have a better hit value on them than the black dice. So
yeah, I don't think the green dice, do they have tentacles on them?
they do
they?
not.
Okay, I didn't think so.
They have a lot of elder signs. So if you can get that arcane ability and start just nailing shit with those dice. So that's kind of why I put this on here. It's an elevated version of Marvel Zombies. You don't get to roll more dice the higher you up unless that's what your abilities you choose. You get to choose because every character has 3 different skill, on their skill tree that they can choose to level up on, and you can choose whichever one of those you want to move up on every time you level up. You're not going to be able to move up all of them.
Your insanity lets you roll more green dice.
Well, I guess there are there's little
I think it's
spots in there that lets you roll
yeah.
under. Yes, yes. So yeah, underneath some of the level up spots has those.
Mm-hmm.
But you get the option of choosing how you want to level up as well. You're not going to be able to fully level up on all of them. So you just kind of pick which one you want to go with. There's 2 generic
Yeah.
abilities because there's a pool of generic abilities that everybody kind of gets randomized with on
Mm-hmm.
the cards. But then there's that top one is their personal, ability that makes them a little unique.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, this one's just a dice fest with a lot of cool aspects of going insane and doing different stuff.
Yeah,
So,
this one is definitely really good. I kind of like you. I do enjoy that kind of like you get more powerful at the worse off you get,
mhm,
which is like because eventually you're going to get to a point where it's like I don't want to level up anymore. Like
right.
'cause I am about to die.
Yep.
Uh, yeah, and getting new stuff, and if scalpers can go to hell because now their unspeakable boxes are worth shit. So yeah, very excited for all that.
Yep. So
Good
that's my
choice.
number
Good choice.
5.
Now that I think about it, Simon really does do really good dice combat.
Hmm.
Like even the archaic ones, like Arcadia Quest, is like, yeah, all you're doing is rolling dice, but they exploding sixes. That's a lot of fun.
Right.
So,
Yep.
all right, my number 4 is another card-based game. This one kind of like there's something about cards that for me allow me to like help visualize combat because obviously it's not instant video stuff like a video game where it's just like you're really into the moment like if you're in a super amazing like boss fight in Dark Souls or something. So you have to kind of convey that with art and with card names and just being able to see what you're doing in a board game. And this game, I think, does that extremely well with my number 4, with Tainted Grail. So Tainted Grail, I put as what I say, symbol matching deck building. Because you have 2 decks, you have negotiation and you have your combat. Obviously, I'm not talking about negotiation. In your combat, every card you have has a row of symbols over on the left and the right side. So whenever you are going into combat, you have your hand of cards that you're gonna play, and whenever you play them, maybe the next picture of mine will show it, Brad. It fucking doesn't. Good. It just shows everything else, and I don't care about the board. No, but whenever you're fighting something and you have your hand of cards, whenever you play a card, on the right side there are symbols. So whenever you play a subsequent card, you are matching those symbols together that might give you essentially these cubes. Like these cubes are kind of like the damage that you're doing to the enemy, or it might give you various icons like being able to draw and draw more cards. And when it's like, okay, if you do this is going to be a timed event, so the next turn around the ability will pop off. Like, or it might give you some defense because all the cards obviously have special abilities on them, ways to cast spells, ways to attack specifically, ways to do criticals, things like that. But what makes this incredibly engaging is whenever you are deciding on the row of cards you're going to play is that symbol system. So it's like if you're playing a card and it has like a 2 times, and then you have another card that has like it shows 2 red cubes. If you can match those to where they meet up, that would be 4 red cubes, which is essentially 4 damage on whatever you're fighting. And you're trying to get a certain number of cubes depending on what you're fighting. So if it's like a infested bear, that every bear in every single board game and video game has the most health of any enemy. It's like, God, I have to get 10, like I have to do 10 damage essentially. Well, a critical hit with this and this special ability gives me 6. Like that's a lot. But what's also really cool is the way that the enemies react is dependent on like the damage that they've been dealt. So kind of like whenever whenever it's the enemy's turn, it's like, okay, if this has been dealt 8 damage, it's going to do this insane ability because it's very much near death. But that combo system, so kind of like what I mentioned with Street Fighter, is, with the different colors of being able to play subsequent cards in a row, you can kind of do that here. There are ways that let you play more cards on your turn, ways to draw more cards because you don't really get a whole lot of ways to do that. It's very satisfactory, and I enjoy, after the combat is done, being able to look at my row of cards and kind of visualize what I did to defeat whatever I was fighting. The combat system, and this is still, to me, engaging. It is a small part of the game. You aren't fighting a whole lot, as much as you would think. A lot of this is still very narrative driven. But because you're deck building, you have advanced cards that you level up, so your characters do feel different from one another. And because you're deck building 2 different decks of negotiation and combat, negotiation is its whole other thing. But being able to play the cards, think about it as kind of like another puzzle thing, because you're not moving around a board you're not doing this folklore thing where it's like, all right, now let's put on the minis and do all that. It has to be atmospheric and tell a story of what you're doing with combat, because it's just card based. And I think Tainted Grail does that really well. I enjoy the card play, multi-use cards, and the simple matching is something that's really fun for me. So that's my number 4, Tainted Grail.
Good choice. Now here's where turns into a game that you hate.
Okay. Do I hate the combat, or do I just hate the game?
You hate the game and the combat. I think you just hate the entire game.
Okay.
Although it would be better if you played it with more people, I think. But anyway, okay. This one is a game that hits a lot of my lists. It's kind of up and down on my top 100 a lot, depending on if I've played it. The combat of this is one phase of the game. There's a lot of other card play and intrigue and all these market phases and different kinds of stuff throughout the game. But the reason I put it on this list is because of the arena combat in Spartacus, A Game of Blood and Treachery.
Not this a 3-player game.
No, not at all. This one, I would say minimum 4, probably better at 6. If 5 or 6 is where it really is fun. But anyway, so glossing over, this game is, like I said, made up in a bunch of different phases. You're going to be doing intrigue stuff. You win. You control a dominus, a person that has all these different gladiators and slaves under them and stuff like that. But and you're trying to get a certain amount of prestige, I think is the term they use, to win at the end. But there's this phase where the market phase, you can actually buy gladiators and slaves to come and join your house. And then there's the arena phase happens. And when you all get into the arena, there's this whole wager to see who is going to host the games. And then they get to pick the people that have to put a fighter in. So you can put a slave in if you don't think you're going to win or whatever. And then there's a whole betting aspect. Anyway, when you get to the actual battle phase, you have your gladiators enter the arena, and they are going to have different stats on their deal. They're going to have a red number, a black number, and a blue number. The red is attack, the black is defense, and the blue is their speed, how much they can move. So whoever gets you roll your blue dice to see who gets to move first. That's your initiative. And then they'll move in the hex base, the typical hex movement crap. But then when they attack, they're going to roll their red dice, depending on what their value is. The defender rolls their black dice. And then you line those dice up from highest to lowest. And then you match up each one of those and see, okay, the red was higher than this one. That's a hit. And you keep going down. If they take, let's say the defender takes a hit, then they can choose any one of their dice, even their speed, they need to take away. And then they get a chance to attack. So they roll their red dice, the other one rolls their black, and you just kind of whittle away at each other. And sometimes it can be just a massive swing if you roll really poorly and they attack. If you can get them down to where there's just like one dice left and they're defeated and they're injured, If you can do an attack that just totally wipes all their dice out at the end of combat, then they are decapitated. And that's one of the things that you can wager on in the corners of the board and stuff. Even though this is a simplistic combat system, I just like that whole thing where you're rolling fistfuls of dice. You line them up from biggest to smallest, and then you're comparing. So you may be able to block some of them and not some others. You can kind of take advantage. There are ways. I mean, it is kind of deterministic a little bit, because if you have one of the really big guys going against a common slave, you're going to beat them. But there's always that chance that if the strong gladiator rolls low and the weaker attacker rolls those big numbers, they can start hitting, and that whittles down the big guy and makes them more even as the battle goes. So it's just one of those things. It's simple, but yet it is just a fun deal. When you play with these 5 and 6 people matches in this game, I mean, so many times it's come down to like that last roll, and everybody's like standing up around the table, and you get the last roll to see if they win or if they block and stuff. And it's just one of those. It's just a fun game. I played this game a ton of times over the years, and I know this is the first edition box. They have a second edition that changed all the art out and everything, but it's the same game.
I bet you they changed terminology too. I can't imagine they're still throwing the word slave around.
Yeah, don't know about that. I know they got rid of the NC-17 rating, so they got rid of like the Jupiter's cock and all those different
Well,
like.
because the show was basically porn.
Well, right. So, but no, this one is it's just a fun one just to have, especially with a larger group.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I could see myself getting into this. It's like, every time a gladiator dies, take a shot.
Well, and the more people, what's cool about it though is like you don't even have to participate in the games to win this at all.
That's true.
You don't even have to go the gladiator angle if you can just find a way to get money going and try to host the games, because anytime you host the game, you automatically get one of those prestige victory points. So you just have to be sneaky and sly and try to get things, and wager well and be smart on what you do. And it's just still one of my favorite big group games.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that being a lot of fun. Definitely. I don't. My opinion of this game, I don't really ever take into consideration, because I played it once at 3 with someone who is not combat focused, is not an aggressive player. It's like, well, that's not. That's like the worst case scenario you could be in for a game like this. So,
well, and you're playing against a non-combat person, or you're with a non-combat person against somebody that's played it a shit ton of times.
True.
So it's just kind of like, you know.
So my experience was not in this game's favor in any way. So if you ever have a big group and you need a 6th person, hit me up.
Okay.
Okay, so my number 3 is this one actually surprised me that it was this high up, but whenever I was thinking of combat systems, I was trying to think of something that just really gets you into the combat and something that you're looking forward to every single time, and this one definitely does that. Now, the narrative portion of this game leaves a lot to be desired, and I know they're focusing on that in the 2nd edition. But for the combat portions of this game, it's very fun and you really get into it. So my number 3 is Stars of Akarios. So this one is kind of like if you were to take 7th Continent, Gloomhaven, and X-Wing, Star Wars X-Wing, and just combine them all together. I have this one kind of coined as dogfighting ship maneuvers. Basically the combat of this ship. This is just really like a shit game. I hate it. But so basically, if you've played Star Wars X-Wing, it's a lot of that, except instead of having rows of cards and kind of chucking dice, you take the modifier deck from Gloomhaven. In fact, I almost think it's completely identical. And then you add that into this I don't even know what you would call it. This definitely fucking grid-based combat. So whenever your turn is, you're rolling dice, and they're very simple dice rolls. You basically have 3 icons that you're trying to get, but your ship is kitted out with different, gadgets and maneuvers and abilities that you can do and how you've built your ship. So if you assign the correct dice to a certain location, you could do like a barrel roll and then kind of this fly bank to get into the flank of an enemy, so that you can attack them. And just something about doing that just immediately lets you visualize it all.
Mm-hmm.
And each kind of card has certain amount of uses that you can do, and there's ways for you to get those uses back. But like the very top middle card that is on the area at the bottom there, it's like it allows you to kind of like shoot in like behind you and then move forward twice. So there's a lot of different cards and abilities that you can get that really can hone in on the build you're trying to do for your ship. But like, for example, if you are able to do this really cool like barrel roll to then come around and get in behind the enemy into its like rear arc, that gives you advantage. So you can then try and shoot it, which then with the modifier deck makes it better for me. I don't know. Flipping a card to me is better than rolling a die, which X-Wing is all dice-based combat. Now, the dice in X-Wing is a little bit more involved with tokens and abilities and stuff. But with the modifier deck of this one, which you can also modify through various upgrades and abilities that you can get throughout the course of the game, just like you can in Gloomhaven, just really makes it innovative. And well, I guess not innovative, it makes it engaging. Like innovative would be the wrong word, because it's like, well, you took Gloomhaven and then you took X-Wing. And then the AI system completely fits. Like for some reason, like the way that they built the AI is very simplistic, but they don't feel dumb. And I know we haven't really talked about the AI a whole lot in a lot of these games, but this is done really well, I think, because that's also really hard to do. Is if you're gonna you can't make the enemies super dumb like some video games do, where it's like, wow, they just kind of stand there. This is embarrassing. But this one is just, if you really like that kind of like small ship flying around, and you're like everything's simultaneous. Like if you're playing with friends, unless you're attacking the same ship, you can play this. You can do your entire thing. Like I could fly over and attack that yellow ship, where someone could fly around and attack one of the smaller red ships, and another one can fly around and attack the big ship, and you can do that all together. And it just, you're really put into like that Star Wars ship kind of fighting system. Right. So I enjoy this a lot. Like you have your hull, you have your, but what's also cool is as you take damage and as you do certain things, you can gain stress. And stress is not good because it adds misses, but it does also invoke that kind of thing that you would get if you were in this kind of combat, where you could potentially do this major attack, but you draw a stress card, which is a miss, which is huge because it's like I built all this up, but you're the one who caused that, and it's thematically appropriate. It's really good. Like I've enjoyed this a lot. I haven't played this because I am waiting for the narrative update, because the voiceover is not that great. It's kind of written amateurish. So hopefully with the second edition, they got more professional writing, and it's just overall done better, where there's not mistakes actually in the narration. But yeah, this was one, every time I got into combat, I wasn't upset about it. I was always excited to kind of fly around the space and then battle these different AI enemies. So that's my number 3, Stars of Akarios.
All right. Well, my number 3 is another crossover.
There's Gloomhaven.
Yeah. Yep.
There's Street Fighter Miniatures game.
And I just put Gloomhaven on here because I have not touched Frosthaven yet. So we're getting there. But same game pretty much. I mean, as far as the combat system goes. There isn't really a whole lot more we talk about with this. I mean, we hit the 2-card system pretty hard. The one thing I do like about it is, you talked about how you have to choose the top and the bottom, top of one card, bottom of another card. But if for some reason you're totally hosed out of whatever happens initiative wise, you always have that attack and move in the middle of the card that you can use, not just the ability as well. So those cards, you're always going to be able to do something, no matter if you get screwed initiative wise or anything. You're at least going to be able to move or attack or whatever with those cards, you know.
Unless you're immobilized and disarmed.
Well,
then you're just dead.
That's
then
true,
you're just,
if you're immobilized and stuff, your card's not going to make a difference anyway.
That's true.
So, but yeah, I mean, that's I'm really close to the end of this game. So once I get done with this, I'm probably still not going to jump into Frosthaven for a little while because I have some other campaigns type games I want to work on before I jump into Frosthaven. But yeah, this is one of those games, like you said. We did a worst games list several years ago, and this was, I think, my number one on my worst game or most disappointing games or something like that. We recorded it in my classroom. I remember, like, way.
That would have been when it came out. I think 2017.
Yeah, and this was like I think one of my worst of 2017. Then,
was it that high? Man,
I hated, like, it was one or two. I despised.
I think it was on both your disappointing and worst. I think it was number 1 on disappointing and then number 10 on worst.
whatever it was. This game I did not like.
Yeah.
I did not like this game actively after playing it. I played 3 times. Hated the hand management system. For some, and then we did Jaws of the Lion campaign and did that tutorial, and that just it just clicked in my head. Then it presented it in the right way, and then now I just can't get enough of the game. I mean, it's on my table all the time. It's around me right now, and it's just one of those games that I love playing. It's definitely worth the hype that it's gotten.
Yeah.
So, yep.
It's so good.
That's
all right. My number two is probably your number 1, if not your number 2. And this is the one that actually was lower on this list. It initially made the list, but I was thinking too simple on the combat. I was thinking, all you do is draw cards or roll dice. But then I was like, well, no, that's not all you do. There's so much more to this actual combat system. And then it jumped it all the way up to number 2. Honestly, could be number 1, but my number 1, I'm really enamored with. My number 2 is...
Oh, yes.
Is Oathsworn. Oathsworn is what I have put is a push your luck with cards and dice. But that's what I initially kind of thought of it as. Because it is that. However, they have what's also called their battle flow system. So whenever you are actually, and this is a boss battler through and through, every chapter does have a story chapter, which has nothing really to do with anything combat wise. And then the second encounter, which every story leads to an encounter. Man, it is so good. Like this was easily, like I said, it was lower on the list until I was like, wait a minute, there's a battle flow, because I wasn't thinking of the battle flow. I was just thinking of, okay, well, whenever you attack, you either roll dice or draw cards or any combination of. But no, that battle flow system, the multi-use cards is just so good. That really just get you into this theme, into this fight, because also the AI, like, this game is not easy. Whenever you're playing it, the boss card is always face up, so you know exactly what they're gonna do. But the problem with that is there's nothing you can do about it. You can try and mitigate it. You can hopefully try and get it to where they miss, but they have hit locations. So either whenever it's their turn, they're either going to do the top card, or if you break a location, which is by removing one of their hit location dice, then they do the card. So it's like, do we want to try and whittle it down? Because you eventually have to kill it. So it's like, do we do this now or and cause this ability to go off first? But then you're not going to be able to prep for what the next card is. Because like I said, it's always face up. Just that perfect knowledge is insanity to me on how they balance that. Because you would think, oh, well, I know what they're going to do, so the boss is going to be easy.
Right.
No, there's nothing. You're just like, well, that's happening. Can we maneuver it in a way? Can we try and get the person who has the most defense to be the one to tank the attack? But if you're the one who breaks the location, then you're the target. So if your, healer is the one who breaks it because it's their turn and they can do that, then it's like, well, shit.
Yeah.
And then the push your luck is like this game. If you want to roll dice, roll dice. If you don't, draw cards.
Well,
but
oh, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to
no,
interrupt.
go ahead. So no, go ahead.
I was just going to go on what you were just saying right there. Like you can even game it. Like if you like to draw cards, I mean, but that discard pile of those dice is open knowledge. You know how many successes and misses are in that are left in that deck. You can be like, nope, I've seen a lot of successes. I'm going to roll dice. Like you can
exactly
game it that way.
Yeah, no, that's actually what I was going to say next. Okay. You can look at the discard pile because the randomness is technically the same. There's 18 cards in each deck, so there's 6 blanks. And whenever you attack, if you roll 2 blanks, that's a miss. But you have redraw tokens or reroll tokens, and you can you have so much mitigation with this that every single I'm only in chapter 8 of this out of 20. And well, because every single, like the story takes an hour and a half, the 2 hours, the encounter takes an hour and a half. Even if no one goes down, like if no one, got hurt or injured, it's engaging the entire time.
Right.
The way they're, and you can push your luck. Like you can be like, because I have 3 players for this. Spoiler, I guess that's a boss. It's on the cover.
Yeah.
But so I run an AI, like a companion, and the companions are badass too. But I've kind of made it a rule in my head that I never draw for the companion. I always roll dice.
Yeah,
and they can use some tokens, not every single token, but they can utilize them in some way. The last time I fought, I went with the archer. She's my AI person. I was like, yeah, I'll roll dice and I'll enhance it so I can roll a black. I rolled crits 3 times in a row with that. And whereas other games we've mentioned, they have exploding dice. So if you roll a die with the brackets around it, that's a crit and you can keep rolling as long as you get it. You can draw or roll up to 10 dice. Or 10 cards. So if you enhance it and you change the die value to where you're rolling 3 reds and a yellow, well, that's 4. So you can roll 6 more white dice.
Yep.
If you really want to try. And if you, for some miraculous reason or miraculous way, never roll 2 blanks or have a shit ton of redraw tokens to where you can mitigate that, you can do a lot. And the best thing about that is if you miss and you spend a shit ton of tokens to do it and you still miss, you get all those tokens back. And you get to choose a combat token. It's called the determination rule. This game has somehow miraculously made one of the best combat systems and one of the best boss battlers out there. The story is so well done. The one thing I'm very curious about though is I wonder how much it relies on those mystery boxes,
right?
Because that's a lot of the appeal. You don't know where you're going to fight next. So because the story is not really branching in any way, it's not like if I make a different decision in chapter 3, that's going to result in a different encounter. So I'm very curious as whenever you finish all 20 chapters, what's the replayability of going back? Now, I have a small experience with that, with showing you the game.
Right.
of fighting the brood mother or the rat queen, whatever her name is.
Yeah, because we did some
Um,
different stuff in the city, didn't we? Because I like went someplace
we
different and stuff.
Yeah, so it is more of just kind of the narrative part might be different, but your fight is going to be your
Hmm.
boss is still going to be the same. Um, the so it might just be more of who you have as your players. Uh, but even then, like I still had a blast fighting her again.
Hmm.
Uh, so it is just it will lose that element of ooh, like what are we fighting next? But that's just the sheer nature of any game. Like your first experience, like my first experience with Elden Ring was it was indescribable. But going through it, it's again, it's I mean, it's just not going to have that. So it's more of just, I want to fight her with this group this time. You
They
know,
they they've got to come out with another box with more monsters. I mean, this is such a popular game. You'd think that they would
I
do another
know.
whole Oathsworn like into
Yeah,
the Frostlands or something like that. Or
yeah. I'd be very because like there's a lot of these companies now that come out that are kind of just doing these lifestyle games. KDM started it. They have
Mhm.
failed to deliver. uh, but then you have I mean, Cephalofair with Gloomhaven and Frosthaven. That's same world. I mean, I would consider that a lifestyle game. You have now Aeon Trespass,
Yep.
who I mean, just their latest Kickstarter is a shit ton of stuff for the same game.
Hmm.
Midara,
Yeah.
another
Yep.
lifestyle kind of game. So I would imagine that they would um, continue doing stuff for this. Like it'd be really weird if how popular this game was and how much money they've made. If they're like, no, we're done.
Yeah.
Shadowborn Games, we're done. We just made that one game.
I can't wait to get mine. I'm ready for it to
Yeah,
get here.
yeah.
It's the last week,
It's
and I just played the first. This scenario that's on the board right now is the only one I've messed with, so I'm
yeah,
ready to get going on some other
yeah.
stuff.
I've
So yeah,
done yeah, like I said, chapter up to so I'm going into chapter 9. I'm not even halfway through, and it's taken me a long time. Because I plan like a full day. Like when my friends come up to play this, like it's like, oh sweet, we're starting at 1. Then we look at the clock and we're like, oh my God, it's fucking 11 o'clock and we've done 2 chapters.
mhm,
Like
yeah,
it's a lot. But yes, here's hoping like I mean that would be the simplest answer. You just
right,
do a monster box,
yep,
but I would imagine they would do yeah, into the Frostlands or something. That's a good one.
yeah,
Into the desert. Some
yeah, or the
horrible
caves,
world
like
terrain.
into
Yeah.
the caverns of something. Like
There's
they
a
could do anything.
they really can. And with the Oathsworn theme and the world I love, and I bet you they have to, right?
Well, and
Come
having
on.
they having that battle flow system and this whole battle system in general. I mean they've got that. That's the hard to me. That would be the hardest part to figure out is a good complete battle system like that. So now it's just coming up
I
with the
mean, you just do the
monsters.
same. You just do another box. Yeah,
Right.
you do another
Yeah.
box, another 20 chapters, 20 different enemies,
Yep.
same world. Yeah,
Yep.
I mean, there's a lot they can do. I mean, here's hoping.
Yep. All
So
right.
that's my number 2, Oathsworn.
Good choice. Well, my number two is a game that right off the top. I mean, this was one of the ones I automatically thought of when I went on this. And when you're going to see this game, you're going to be like, well, what's the battle in this game? The battle is almost abstracted a little bit, um, but it is a battle when you're doing the action that you take to do it, and that's going to be Netrunner.
I
The
figured you'd
battle.
find some way to put this
Well, no, this
non-combat game.
no, it is. And no, because here I got a good explanation for it. So, the combat in this game is when the runner makes a run on a server because
Okay.
they're using their icebreaker going towards the ice. They have to defeat the ice by pumping themselves up. A lot of times the ice is face down, so it pops up, and you have to try to power up your icebreaker enough to get through it, or to break, to trash the ice or whatever you're doing, depending on the craziness of all the icebreakers and everything. But um, that is an inherently combat. It's not dice based or anything. You have the breaker to break it, or you don't. If you don't, you're going to suffer the consequences, or just stop the run. If you have the thing to break it, you have to make sure you have the right amount of money and or the right amount of clicks enabled to or virus counters, whatever way you're trying to do it, to get through each piece of ice. So that is the battle of this game, is you're trying to battle your way through all of the protection to get to the card that's at the bottom of the server. And that's how it was taught to me when I was learning this game, was think of it as a battle. You're battling through all these enemies to try to get to your destination. So, and the long epic story of this game, it's no longer really, I mean, it's fan carried right now, but it's not one that is currently rolling. But it'll always be my favorite card game. And yeah, I mean, that's just that intrigue of not knowing what those are, like the face down cards. If you were going to run on their server right here, not knowing, you just have to hope you don't face check stuff that's going to trash your whole rig or something, and then be able to make sure you have enough money to get through those things and to defeat each piece of ice as you move forward. I put this on here because it's not dice based. It's not card play based. It's, you have to have it on your table. You just have to make sure you have the right tools to break through and the right money to pay through.
Yeah, I guess the way that I would have to look at this, because it's not traditional combat,
right?
Is kind of like how esports are not like technically sports. It's like, okay, yeah, sure, like it's like, well, it's not like football or basketball, that's like a physical sport, but they're called esports, so they're in that same kind of genre. Sure, yeah.
Well, and ultimately it is, the runner is in combat with the corporation. I mean, that's what these whole shields are that these ice things are putting up, as their protection. They're trying to actively kill you. So
true.
I mean,
that is true.
They want you to die, and you're trying to survive to steal stuff from them. So it's like there's that push and pull and stuff with it. Like I said, it's not going to necessarily fit everybody's definition of combat, but it is. I mean, it is
based off the dictionary definition. It's fighting between armed forces. You are technically armed when going in as a runner, or you're armed as the corporation,
right?
Or as a verb, to take action to reduce or prevent. So yeah, you are not technically wrong here. This is weird though. This is a very weird. I wouldn't have considered this.
I tried to think of some different variation. I didn't want to do all dice stuff or all
fucking shoehorn this game into another top 10 so it has some relevancy.
I know. It's just all combat.
The more we talk about it, the more Fantasy Flight will be like, all right.
I know. That's my goal.
Bring it back. All right.
Number 2.
Well, you have any guess on my number 1?
It's probably the other one that you were comparing to Oathsworn that we talked about earlier.
Yes, I certainly was. My number 1 is a unplayable piece of trash. Unfortunately, they did not pay me any money. Yeah, they didn't pay me any money, so I'm just gonna make a whole online deal that makes me look like a piece of shit. No, my number 1 favorite combat system is Aeon Trespass Odyssey. Kingdom Death could have honestly made this list. Like, Kingdom Death combat is very good, but what makes Aeon Trespass Odyssey better than KDM, in my opinion, is a term that they actually have came up with, so I didn't have to make anything up. It's called their inverted combat paradigm, or the Triskelion kind of system. And in every single one of the games I have mentioned, or some of the other ones, I guess Oathsworn is a little bit different, but KDM is another great example, is when you are fighting, the enemy gets weaker and weaker. Oathsworn is like, technically they physically get weaker, like they're eventually going to be killed, but their level up, like their cards level up, so they become more aggressive. in Aeon Trespass Odyssey, it's the inverse. So the more damage you take, the stronger you get. The more damage that the enemy takes, the stronger they get. So the battles ramp up instead of, peter down. And just that twist on combat makes it way, way more exciting. The AI deck of having a hit location and then kind of like like because you have to roll dice to be able to try and hit a location, and then it's like, okay, boom, here's what you're hitting. Now you have to actually try and damage it. Some other games do that as well, where like Shadows of Brimstone has that. You have to hit, then do damage.
Right.
But the fact is, as you're building out your characters, you have special abilities that your characters can do. You have unique item cards, and you have technologies that your ship can do when you are fighting these primordials. Taking theme and stuff out of the equation, which I think is just insane. This is one of the best forms of grid-based combat that I can think of. It's because no one can move diagonal, so there's the orthogonal movement, which I think adds strategy as well. But that and also you're mitigated. You have mitigation. KDM, it's just roll and hope. This one you can use fate to re-roll dice, but there's a risk to that as well, because a lot of times if an enemy is doing an attack, if your fate value is at a certain number, it might do more than what you were hoping. So there's a risk of that. But if you spend fate to re-roll and you actually succeed, then it, that's a good payoff. All the enemies I fought, which has technically only been 3 different fights, have just been engaging the entire time. It's so invoking to just jump into and try and figure out these different primordials and these bosses that you're fighting. Also, every time you fight them, they eventually will level up, so they get a lot more just innate abilities. So it's not like, oh, let's go beat up on another level 1. You can't. You fought the level 1 enough. Now it's for sure level 2, and that ability that made it weaker, that's gone. So now it's like, oh fuck. And whenever your characters die, it's not the end of the world, because it's just Titans that die, and you can get a bunch of them in. Although that is a lose condition if you lose too many. Hell, even going to the theme on this game, the fact as that the height of the Titans, which I can't remember, I think they're like 10 feet tall. Just knowing that thematically, and then you have the miniature of the Titan standing next to the primordial, you just kind of can really get a sense of scope for this. It's just awesome. I love that. Oh man, I've taken 6 damage, or danger is what they call it. Well, that unlocks all these things. So now I get this many more dice. I get this ability. I get this ability. It's just awesome. And what's also really cool is they have this token system that if you go first and you can generate a bunch of tokens like rerolls or extra damage, it makes the next person going that much stronger. And I love that aspect of teamwork, because in KDM it was just a lot of okay, well, if you go, then you can potentially do this, or if you go, then you can do this. But the fact that I can go and be like, okay, I'm gonna give you 3 extra to your hit. Okay, well, let's have this person go, because they're less likely to hit naturally. Now they can do it. Yeah, this one, I'm just engrossed in the combat. And the reason why this is slightly, and this is very, very slight, kind of like in my top 10 of the year, how this one barely beat out Oathsworn, is just the progression of the bosses is kind of like, even though you're fighting the same boss, they're gonna eventually change. The bosses in Oathsworn don't, because you're only fighting them once. So it doesn't get stale, and you as a player can do a lot more in this game, just with the sheer abilities and the equipment and stuff. This just has kind of a more of an RPG feel, because Oathsworn is not that. You eventually do level up in Oathsworn as a player, but that's not really the game. You're not overloaded with items. You're not doing a build. You're kind of your static character. In Aeon Trespass Odyssey, you are, so it's just a little bit more. But man, it's very close. These two were just, again, number one, number two, figure out where they're going.
Right.
So that's my number one, Aeon Trespass Odyssey.
Good choice. I'd like to try it at some point, but I know it's a campaign thing, so it's kind of a tough one to.
It is. They have a tutorial that I could show you.
Right.
That wouldn't they kind of walks you through, so that wouldn't disrupt really anything.
Right.
On my end, so I would have no problem showing this to you.
Yeah, we might think about doing that just because. All right, so my number one. Do you have any guess?
I would say I'm probably gonna say Oathsworn.
You're right.
Okay. It was either that or Shadows of Brimstone.
Shadows of Brimstone I considered, but it's kind of, I don't know.
It is really
it's really convoluted. Really. I mean, it's kind of a convoluted thing. I love the game, but I like the atmosphere of the game more than I like the battle system of the game. You know, this one, like everything you said, just having the choice between cards, dice, or both is unique enough. But then throwing that damn battle flow system in was just an ingenious move to be able to, because it turns into a puzzle in its own right, trying to play cards here to move things here, trying to get them back in hand. And then
the fact that they don't naturally like cool down,
right,
you would think it's a cooldown system. So at the end of your turn, okay, everything rotates.
Right.
Nope.
No. And then you're trying to deal with that puzzle. And then you're also dealing with a massive fucking rat that's throwing out all these little babies after you and everything. And you're trying to, there's just a lot of stuff, but it's, you know, and like I said, I've only played this game one time. I mean, we played this first scenario.
Yeah.
But and you'd think it sounds like it might be a convoluted system, but I learned it really fast. You know,
it's so simple.
Yeah, it's like an elegant design for a battle. You know, and
they have one of the best tiebreaker systems too, because it's like, okay, it's doing a target. Well, we have two people that are closest, so who's it going to go after? And its rule is always first north and west, and it's like, oh, okay,
yeah,
there it is. Like you're either going to be further north, and if you both are on the same plane, then someone's going to be further west, and that's who it's going after. There's a few things that it does that there are times where I'm like, okay, how's this going to work? But that's very few.
Yeah. Well, and then, and you talked about this a little bit, but the other thing that I really enjoyed about this, and I know this is a common boss battler thing, and I don't play a lot of boss battlers, but the way that it handled damaging different parts of the boss.
Yeah.
You know, like this rat, since it's the opening scenario, it's not really spoilery. You know, like its tail does a lot of nasty stuff. So you go after the tail and kill its tail, then it's not, it fires off a thing where it comes at whoever broke that part, but it's not able to do its powerful tail whip anymore, you know, then once you defeat all those, I think it's like 5 different zones or 6 different zones on the rat. I can't remember.
It varies obviously based off the boss, but
you beat those zones and it weakens them, like it physically weakens them. It's a lot of times any of the boss battlers I fought, you know, you just keep whooping on them until they're done. This one, they physically weaken. You know, you take out their tail, they're weakened. You take out let's say you take out a leg, then it maybe slows them from moving. You know, that wasn't the case necessarily. This just something. You take out his mouth because he had that bite attack, you know, and then it makes that where it doesn't go. So you can like really be really strategic and take out certain things, especially like you said with the knowing what attack is coming. If it's a big tail attack or something like that, you can weaken that or if it's something to throwing a bunch of babies out, you know, or whatever. But you can plan for it. And I just like that strategic where you can attack them in certain spots, you know.
Well, because they thematically made it to where the Oathsworn are experienced, so it's like that's why you're never blindsided by an attack. It's like, well, these guys have been in this fucking forest or in this world for years, so it's like they understand what's gonna happen. So it's like, oh, it's gonna, you know, do its massive tail whip, and then you try and like, you can move back so it misses, but
Mhm.
sometimes it doesn't matter. You're still just gonna get walloped.
Oh,
Even
I
the
know.
damage is really, really cool. It's not like, oh, it's doing 17 damage, I have a health of 50. It's like, no, it's doing 15, my defense is 5. You just
Right.
do simple, okay, well that's 3 damage. And everyone only has 6 health. But you can, I'm gonna spend defense tokens, so now my defense is 6. Well, 6 goes into 15 twice, so I'm only taking 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, this game is grueling but fair.
Yeah.
That's the thing, is like,
Yeah. I'm just excited
so
to
good.
get it. That's my thing. I just want it all, get it out on the table.
Yeah, yeah. It's yeah, the only thing about this thing is like, because the bases of a lot of the bosses are purely round, even though they're hexagonal on their actual movement, it gets very weird sometimes.
It does. Yeah.
I know people have 3D printed circular bases that snap on, but they're actually like hexagonal, so it fits more of what.
Yeah.
I need to see if I can find those, because someone mentioned that to me and I was like, oh man, that would kind of make it a little bit easier to maneuver them.
Right.
Even then, like, even if it's like sometimes I mess up a move or something, it's still punishing.
Thematically. And it's thematic.
Yeah,
That kind of stuff doesn't matter a whole lot in the
yeah.
grand scheme of
I can
things.
definitely say by going into chapter 9, my worst boss encounter has still been extremely fun.
Yeah.
Like they have, and they have to be, because if you're limited to 20, then you can't really miss. And so far they have not. So
Right. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely see why this is number 1.
Yeah. So that's my number 1, Oathsworn.
All right. Well, those are our top 10 combat systems in board games. Let us know what you think of these in the comments below, and let us know what games have your favorite combat in them. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you.
Hey everyone, thank you for watching, and I really hope that you enjoyed the video. If you would like to see more of my content, go ahead and click that subscribe button and the bell to be notified whenever I upload any new content. If you feel like supporting the channel, you can go ahead and click that Patreon link to be taken to my Patreon, and any help is truly appreciated. Other than that, stick around for any other run-throughs or reviews or cool top 10s or whatever I feel like putting on. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you.